Ken, you are a resident small cap expert on the panel today. What's your outlook for the Russell 2000? The small cap index has really surged this year in comparison with the S&P 500, right? It's trading around 19 times now versus an historical average of 14.9 versus 15 times for the S&P 500. Does that give you pause? Are valuations on small caps stretched?
Well, I think clearly you're right. Small caps have outperformed now for some time relative to large caps. I do think that if you look at equity valuations in general, and I think small caps fit into this bill as well, and compare them to the risk-free rate, which is essentially the 10-year Treasury, which is today at 2.6%. Discounted cash flows, if you're discounted by the risk-free rate, equities are still reasonably priced. Let's not forget, if you go back to 2006, 2007, when the S&P was trading at 1560, 1570, we had 10-year bond yields that were north of 5%, and bond yields today are half that. So you can certainly make an argument that we've come a long way, and maybe we need a little bit of a short-term pullback, but to say that stocks in general and small cap equities in particular are expensive, I think that's a bit of a stretch when you consider what your alternative investment is, which for a while had been bonds. And I think we can all agree that that we've been in a bond bull market that probably has come to an end here in the last year.
All right, so it's about the big rotation, right? It's not about maybe small caps versus large caps. It's about stocks versus bonds.
I think that the great rotation has begun. We're starting to see evidence of that. If you look at the data that TrimTabs released the other day, we said $40 billion. It's a record inflow into equity funds in July. There were $20 billion in outflows in bond funds. There were $69 billion in outflows to bond funds in June. So I think you're starting to see that rotation. And we don't even need wholesale movement from bonds back into equities for that to fuel equity markets higher. And so I do agree with you. I think it's rising tide lifts all boats on the equity side. And I do think as an individual investor, you want to have exposure to small cap stocks. Small cap stocks serve to enhance return and can actually also serve to reduce volatility and risk in your total portfolio. So everybody should consider having at least a small allocation of small cap stocks in their total portfolio.